Putin tells Macron West must stop supplying weapons to Ukraine.
Here's a summary of the article.
Russian President Vladimir Putin told French counterpart Emmanuel Macron Tuesday the West must stop supplying weapons to Ukraine and accused Kyiv of not taking talks to end the conflict seriously, the Kremlin said. Accusing Ukrainian forces of committing war crimes and claiming the EU was ignoring them, Putin told Macron, the West could help stop these atrocities by putting relevant pressure on the Kyiv authorities, as well as halting the supply of weapons to Ukraine. Macron for his part, according to the Kremlin, said global food security was under threat due to the Ukraine conflict. Putin linked the situation to Western sanctions against Russia and noted the importance of the unimpeded functioning of the global logistics and transport infrastructure, the Kremlin said. Macron is one of the few Western leaders to speak to Putin since Moscow moved troops into Ukraine on February 24, spending hours on telephone calls trying to negotiate a resolution to the conflict. Ukraine conflict risks creating Third World War, Zelensky in Al Arabiya interview. Russia's Lavrov says May 9th anniversary will not affect military operations in Ukraine.
This post received a score of 17,000, with an upvote ratio of 93%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
I would tell Putin that Russia should stop supplying weapons to Ukraine.
Believe Russia is running low on modern weapons to use. They broke out the 100-year-old rifles and other dusty-ass Soviet weapons. Putin knows Russia can't sustain its current method while Ukraine receives more modern weapons continuously. It's a war of attrition. Expect Putin up the ante.
He should remember Stalingrad. Russians only held out and eventually pushed Germany back because of resupply from across the Volga while the German supply lines were broken.
And because German supply lines were stretched by Operation Torch, which was impacted by the U.S. Navy and Army shutting down the Japanese in the Pacific, thus freeing the British to resupply via Suez. None of the great powers could have won shit alone.
The last sentence is definitely true, but German supply lines were stretched to a breaking point way before Torch, and the amount of Axis men and material committed to Africa was tiny compared to the Eastern Front. Stalingrad had been underway for several months when Torch started, and the Zhev meat grinder was running for almost a year at that point.
Not to mention that German tanks ran on beautifully refined gasoline while Russians were running their tanks on dirty diesel and cooking oil. Hard to keep gasoline supplies.
Beautiful gasoline that froze versus dirty diesel fuel that didn't lol.
Diesel has a much higher freeze point and pour point than gasoline. If the Germans' fuel froze, it was likely due to other issues like water contamination. Modern gasoline will remain liquid at much lower temperatures than modern diesel.
They had to keep fires going under the engines when parked in dead winter, otherwise the tanks wouldn't start?
The vapor pressure of gasoline is dependent upon temperature. When it gets cold, U.S. refineries blend high vapor pressure components into our gasoline to allow our cars to run in cold conditions. The Germans likely had low vapor pressure gasoline, summer gasoline in the US, and had to warm the engine to raise the vapor pressure for proper ignition. Folks that run diesel do something similar. Usually they have an engine block warmer to help liquefy diesel as it tends to gel in cold temperatures.
Oh, just tell him West never supplied any.
The weapons are on vacation.
They are visiting the beautiful region of Donbas, which on my map seems to be Ukraine. Why would Uncle Vova even care? Is he somehow involved in the East?
These talks remain useless. Putin countered every point by shifting the blame back to Ukraine and the West as usual. The one who isn't serious about diplomacy is Putin.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.